Avoidants want you to suffer. We're talking specifically about pure avoidance. And let us explain to you exactly why they want you to suffer.
Hey, it's David here.
And Renee.
And we are the founders of Shenway Media, where we've been teaching women for the last 16 years how to show up as a high-value woman who easily inspires a deep sense of emotional commitment from men.
So about 13 years ago, before we had our first son, and we've got 3 sons, I started delving deeply into the concept of attachment styles. And it's a very useful framework that has unfortunately become very bastardized in the modern age through the internet. You know, people have come in and started talking about it as if the attachment styles are just different ways of loving. That's not how the framework works. The reason why we have heavily focused on the attachment styles as a framework is because if you have an insecure attachment style, it is going to be the precursor to issues, stress, relationship breakdowns, huge fights, whether you're anxious or disorganized or even avoidant. It is so crucial to understand your attachment style, but also to understand your lover's attachment style. And without this knowledge, I would argue that you actually will struggle to have a successful romantic relationship in this day and age unless you have 2 secure partners together.
I'll go as far as to say that a lot of the women that we see in our line of work over the last 10, 15 years, a lot of the ones who are still single by the age of, let's say, 35, 40, 45 and beyond, a large percentage of them, and I'm going to ballpark, maybe throw it out there, 50% plus, have some kind of insecure attachment style. And that could be anxious, that could be somewhat disorganized, a combination of anxious and avoidant, and a few of them are more on the avoidant side. So through our line of work, we began to realize that, this is a real problem, and it really affects people's ability to build and maintain relationships.
Yeah, and form bonds.
Yeah, and so we realized how big of a topic this is, and this is why we're talking about avoidance in this video.
Yeah. So just to be clear, in the context of avoidance wanting you to suffer, we are talking specifically about those pure avoidants, not fearful avoidance. Fearful avoidants are largely anxious with avoidant behaviour because they want to avoid their own anxiety. Pure avoidants are a different kettle of fish altogether. We want you to understand that, and I want to be clear about that before everyone goes and thinks that we're talking about all types of avoidance, including fearful avoidance. We are not.
So let's actually give them a history lesson, just a very quick 60-second history lesson here from David here. Okay, so back in the day, 1940s, Bowlby was the first person who came up with this. He wanted to really study how does early life attachments develop and how does that affect people's behavior later on. So what Bowlby was looking for was a pathological state where the maternal nurturing wasn't present and how that affected these kids growing up. And it was only until I think later on when he works with Mary Ainsworth.
He employed Mary Ainsworth, as a researcher, someone to work with him.
They came up with the first 3 categories of attachment styles. It was secure, anxious ambivalent, and avoidant.
Yeah.
Now, from their perspective, secure was the only non-pathological state.
Yeah.
It was the thing that everyone wanted to be, whereas the other categories were more pathological, right? And it was not until the 1990, Kim Bartholomew did her PhD and did a study. She sort of expanded on this a little bit, and she put together 4 different styles. So if you can imagine, secure on one end, you have in the middle anxious, and then avoidant on the other end. She split the insecure portion into 3 different categories. So she had preoccupied, which is basically anxious. She had fearful avoidant, which is a combination of anxious and avoidant.
Yeah.
But it's based mostly on anxiousness.
Yeah.
Because the people who are in fearful avoidant, I feel like it's a bit of a misnomer. They're not actually really avoidant in the traditional sense.
No.
They're more acting out of anxiousness,
Yeah.
and they avoid things that will make them more anxious.
It's arguably a lesser pathological state, again, arguably, than avoidant.
Oh, completely, much lesser.
Yeah.
Whereas avoidant is on the other end of the extreme on the spectrum,
Right.
and she called it dismissive avoidant.
Yeah.
So when you hear people talk about avoidant, if they're FA, fearful avoidant, that's actually largely based upon anxiousness, not actual avoidant. And in this video, we're going to talk about avoidance.
Yeah.
Because when you have anxiousness, your soul could be redeemed. You still have a soul there. Whereas if you're gone the other end of the spectrum, avoidant, as Bowlby would call them, they're hard-boiled. And other people would categorize them as having no warmth at all, no sense of relationship.
I think that, this is such an inflammatory thing for you to say, but let us contextualize this for you, okay? Because the opposite of secure is essentially the pure avoidant, and the pure avoidant doesn't attach. They don't use their attachment system. That's how severe this is. That is the level of neglect that they had to endure in order to get to that point. And they, as infants, babies, and later children, lived such a dark life that It's deeply affected their psyche, and they've missed the window to trust human bonding. And you could even argue that they're not even aware that that exists. Because a lot of these wounds happen so young, and our attachment styles are formed by the age of 2. These wounds happen so young that they are way beyond our conscious memory. And it's so hard to work through, especially with avoidance, that even children who are avoidants, a lot of children who are at that point, they are beyond saving. Let me explain why. So long ago, a man named David Levy wanted to study overbearing, anxious mothers who were infantilizing their infants through their behavior. He wanted to study the negative effects of those types of mothers and their mothering on their children. In the process of studying this, he set up a control group. This control group later became his real focus because the control group were infants, toddlers, and children who didn't have present caretakers, mother or father. A lot of them were children and toddlers who had been sent from foster carer to foster carer to foster carer to foster carer. Every single time their behavior getting less and less manageable, and them developing zero attachments altogether to any foster parent. Now, the reason they didn't develop this attachment is due to something that John Bowlby himself called, now I hope I pronounce this right, monotropy. John Bowlby, the father of attachment, believed and came up with this term monotropy because he believed that what was crucial was that the infant was able to bond to a primary caregiver. I'm not putting all the blame on mothers here, but it was the ability to attach and feel safe with one close relationship and bond to that mother or father or caretaker, even a foster carer, that saved their attachment system. Okay, when they couldn't do that, and they're sent from one, foster carer to another, they end up, and this is crucial, listen carefully, they end up becoming affectionless humans, not just humans, but children. These affectionless children then are seemingly friendly to everybody. Okay, they seem open to everybody. If you read about some of these foster mothers and fathers who took on these neglected children, they had to endure so much suffering with these children because despite the fact that they seemed friendly on the surface, despite the fact that these children may give you a kiss or a hug on the surface, they realized very quickly that it had no meaning behind it. And here's why, because they could go and give someone else the exact same gesture. So that is why we are telling you, and the reason why we came up with this meaning, that avoidance wants you to suffer. It's the theory itself that has driven us to this conclusion, but also our own experience with completely pure avoidance. And I don't believe most people have had experience with pure avoidance. And if you have, you will understand this. This will resonate, I guarantee you.
Yeah, so being a secure person myself, it's very easy to project my sense of secure attachment upon others.
Yeah.
And go, oh, they should act or react like me. And if they don't, then there's probably some other reason behind it, but they mostly like me.
Yeah.
Whereas if you are secure yourself and you encounter someone who's either anxious or avoidant completely, they will operate on completely different rules, ideas, awareness, everything. Okay. I can give you an example actually. When I was very young, when I was 11, and I was sent to live with my mother, whom I had no memories of. And
just again, let's contextualize. She left David behind when he was 3.5. So she completely left his life, left his picture. David was raised by his father and grandparents. Thank God.
So I went to live with her, and I remember very early on, there was this sense of coldness. There was not that sense of warmth that you'd think that you'd feel from family. And we were playing cards at one night. It was the game 500. If you play cards, it's a very popular game. And I remember I was about to win the whole game after about 45 minutes of playing.
You were playing with your mother?
My mother and a family friend.
A family friend. And
I was about to bid for the kitty. I think that's what they call it, the kitty, the 3 cards in the middle. And I won the bidding, so I was about to take it, and she swipes the cards off the table, and, completely out of turn, as if she didn't want me to win by cheating. And that felt really wrong at the time. I just couldn't voice it as an 11-year-old, but it felt really, it felt like she wanted to see me lose. She'd rather see me lose than to have me have a chance of winning this game.
Yep.
And this is completely bizarre because, we have 3 kids ourselves, and we couldn't be prouder when they win any game that we play. And we kind of sometimes even set them up to win.
Yeah.
Just because, we are so proud of who they are.
Yeah.
But that particular experience, that gave me the complete opposite feeling. And it wasn't much later on in our lives that we realized that my mother, the cold person that she is, she became this way because when she was born, she was actually born in China during before the Cultural Revolution. I think they were really poor, and she was the youngest of 7 kids, and she was sent away to a milk mum in the countryside.
This is in the 1950s.
Yeah, so she was sent away for the first 3 or 4 years, and she only came back to her family after about 4 years. Who knows what kind of abuse and what kind of neglect she would have endured during that time. And that makes sense.
Well, she would have been secondary. She would have been an afterthought, even though she was technically supposed to be breastfed, because the milk mum had her own, like, 3 children or something.
Yeah, exactly. And this is exactly why I've never felt like I had a relationship with her.
Yeah.
No matter how much time I've spent with her, since the age of 11, it just feels like, she treats me as just an outsider.
19 years it took us to realise who she really was and what this all meant. Like, we hate labelling people. We hate it. And so we never labelled her, but it took us living with her for 2 months for us to realise, wowzers. And I'm grateful for that time of suffering that we had, because we realised who she was and we came to these understandings. And I've had similar experiences in my own life with a father who I'm relatively sure, again, I'm hesitant to diagnose anyone, but I'm relatively sure is another pure avoidant from Britain, born over 80 years ago into stoic families who may have, just like John Bowlby himself, who had very wealthy parents who neglected him and passed him as a baby on to other carers. That was the cool thing to do back then. Who knows what influence my father's parents were under. But yeah, it's become a very clear thing to us that avoidants want you to suffer. And if you read John Bowlby's work with the 44 juvenile thieves, you would realize that a lot of those 44 juvenile thieves ended up that way because they were babies or toddlers who were stripped from their sometimes loving families into hospital care because they had diphtheria. And the protocol for dealing with diphtheria at that time for children was to isolate them away from their family, away from visitors, in hospital for 9 whole months. And sometimes these are 1-year-olds, sometimes 2-year-olds. That left them with this emotional deprivation, a deprivation of maternal and paternal care. They didn't have those bonds. And so a lot of those toddlers and children came back into their families, and their mothers and fathers still wanted to treat them the way they did previously. But they didn't realize that these kids came back a completely different soul. And these kids then went on, a lot of them, to steal. As I said, they're juvenile thieves. A lot of them were severe criminals, some of the worst career criminals of our time they became, okay? And they started not by causing other people outside their family to suffer, but they started by causing people within their family to suffer, within the so-called closer relationships to suffer. How they did it? They stole money from their mothers and fathers, okay? Repeatedly, compulsively. Think of compulsive lying, compulsive stealing, that kind of thing.
And the crazy thing is to think that none of these warm, loving families could undo the damage of what that 9 months of deprivation did. None of them could.
Yeah.
It's gone. That period of development
Yeah.
was gone. It's finished, and they were stuck like that. It was a permanent change.
Yeah. And so this deprivation that avoidants have starts with a deprivation in nurturing. It's not just, mummy comes when we cry 50% of the time. It's mummy comes never. Mummy comes never. Daddy comes never. It's, for example, I remember reading this heartbreaking comment on YouTube, a YouTube video, a fascinating YouTube video. It's like a 3-minute video of Mary Ainsworth's strange situation. Below it, there was a comment from an avoidant woman who said, when I was born, my mother got very sick. And so she had to stay in hospital for a long time. We're talking months on end. So she ended up getting passed around to different substitute carers, whether it be aunties, friends, as she said. And she says now, as an adult, she cannot attach to anyone. And now you'll see people replying to her saying, what, you had no one to attach you? No one who could care for you? Well, yes, she did. But she got passed around, okay? And that has consequences. And so the consequence is that she can't attach to people. Now, I'm not saying that every avoidant is going to immediately want you to suffer. That's not how this works. What I am saying is that at some point, and when you get too close to the avoidant, you will see in little gestures, little things that they say, that they actually want you to suffer. Because ultimately, they didn't come from emotional abundance. They didn't come from an abundance of attachment, bonding, trust, and care. They came from the most damaging kind of lack that any human baby could.
I think what attachment does for us as humans is it sort of forms this us versus them kind of thing.
Yes.
It keeps us on the same team. So if we're in a relationship, if I win, you win. If you win, I win. You form that non-zero-sum game.
Yes.
Whereas true avoidance, they can't do that. They don't have the capacity to do so because they can't form attachments.
Yes.
So everything to them is a zero-sum game.
That's
if
right.
I win, you lose.
Yes.
If you win, I lose.
That's right.
And that kind of reality makes it very difficult to number one, be close to them, and number two, for them to want the best for anyone else.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Yeah.
And, I am my mother's son. And I can honestly say that she doesn't want the best for me. And I'm sure that that's not a unique experience.
No.
Because a lot of people experience very similar things.
It's not as unique as you would think.
Exactly. And you think that, that there's so many parents out there who want the best for their kid. And it's almost assumed that should be the case.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a large percentage of people who feel the opposite. The very, very opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
So because they can't form these attachments, so everything is a non-zero sum. Everything is a zero-sum game.
And anything you get, they perceive they get less of.
Yeah, because now we basically get reverted back to more of our lizard brain thinking.
That's right.
And envy drives most of that. So you get something more, that means I have less. And that's a crazy mentality, but that is the reality.
Yeah.
If you have to deal with avoidant people.
Yeah. Again, pure avoidance.
And as an avoidant, I mean, you are nothing to them.
Yeah.
You are nothing. They don't have the same sense of boundary everyone is an outsider. There is no insider to them.
Yeah.
So they will see you as an outsider, and as such, they'll treat you as an outsider. And for the most part, they feel like they've suffered so much, they have so much emptiness deep down inside that they want you to have the same.
And I guess sometimes in an attempt to act out what we've lost, or even try to grasp onto what we've lost, sometimes it's those types of what you may consider evil actions that come out first, because you're acting on some of the most primal emotions, because it's got to that point. As an anxious person, you may be anxious and angry at your mother. You may sort of like have protest behaviors when she comes back after leaving you alone with the babysitter or at daycare for a while. But that's anger, all right? And with the avoidant, you don't even have that. You don't even have the luxury of hyperactivating your attachment system. Instead, you don't even have that anger. You've got to suppress everything. It's me against the world. I'm alone.
That's right. And that's where, having attachment, that is so important for us as humans, because then we can be on the same team. We can share resources.
That's right.
And they don't do that.
Yeah.
No matter how they're related to you.
Yeah.
They don't do that.
And sharing resources and bonding and attachment kind of regulates your sense of integrity as a person, doesn't it? The more you invest in others, the more you emotionally attach to others, the more you care about them, and therefore the more you share. And that's all because of our attachment system, right? And so if you don't even have that or activate it, what is this sharing thing? What is this like,
Yeah, you might as well be a lizard living under a rock. I mean, what makes us human is our humanity.
So obviously there's the ethical question here as to, well, what the heck are you supposed to do if you are truly avoidant? Well, to quote one purely avoidant lady who's commented in my other YouTube videos on avoidance, she said that she doesn't believe avoidance should be in relationships. And she's a true avoidant. Like, she took our attachment styles quiz. It's completely free if you want to take it. And she scored 21% secure. I don't think I've seen anyone score that low before, not to put her down or anything, but just to indicate to you that she was legitimately avoidant. Now, I don't necessarily agree with her that, avoidance shouldn't be in relationships. If you are a true, pure avoidant, first of all, chances are you may not even be here. It may not have lasted watching this long. Second of all, if you are a pure avoidant, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't have relationships. But I would be conscious of the fact that when you go and spend time with and spend time with people who are anxious, fearful, avoidant, or secure, that you are causing them to suffer by not activating your attachment system. Knowing that, I would recommend perhaps that you need to choose other avoidants, because you're still capable of transactional relationships. You're still capable of, surface level feelings or surface talk. You're still capable of humor. You are still capable of achieving so much in your life. So you can still have value to people. But I would be very aware that going into relationships with secure, anxious, and fearful avoidants, you will cause them deep suffering, unless by a miracle you actually manage to heal. That's another conversation altogether. Can pure avoidance heal? Fearful avoidant, absolutely you can heal. Anxious, absolutely you can heal. But pure avoidants who have missed that window to learn to activate their attachment system, that's a conversation that you get a lot of opposing views on, and we can do a video on that another time.
Chances are they don't see any value
in
relationships,
so
there's no reason to do so or to heal.
Yeah.
So if there's no value, they won't gravitate towards it anyway. So I don't think they don't even know what it feels like or what it means to be attached. So no, again, we're talking about true avoidance, not fearful avoidant. I think that's a misnomer. I think I'd rather that be called disorganized.
Or anxious ambivalent.
Yeah, anxious ambivalent or anxious avoidant even, that's okay. Because it's largely based on anxiousness.
Yeah, exactly. And it keeps the framework as simple as it was initially meant to be. This framework has become more convoluted as time's gone by, because so many people who have never actually cared or truly studied Bowlby's and Ainsworth's frameworks have come in and just put their own spin on it. And what's happened is that people now associate avoidant behaviour with avoidant attachment style, and that is one of the most damaging things I have ever seen happen. Okay, We've seen so many frameworks get bastardized, including masculine and feminine energy. Okay, fine, we can move on from that. But this is no joke. Saying someone's avoidant in attachment style because they're avoiding you can be so damaging to those people who are dealing with true avoidance, because secure people can avoid you too for all kinds of reasons. And although there's an obvious overlap between avoidant behavior and avoidant attachment style itself, I would say think affectionless. Think affectionless, because a secure person who's capable of affection, or even an anxious person who's capable of affection, can avoid you.
Correct. Secure people can avoid you,
Yeah.
and they often do, right? But it's very different to how avoidant people do it.
Yeah, exactly. So this is our first video on this new channel. Let us know if you would like us to do a video on avoidance healing or any other topics. And if you want to take the free attachment quiz to see where you sit on our unique attachment styles spectrum, go to reneeslinks.com. You'll see a free quiz there. It only takes 3 minutes and you will get a score, a personalized score for how secure you are. Make sure you read the explanation afterwards and read the emails that will get sent daily to your inbox. Completely free newsletter. You will find it very valuable.
Leave a comment below. Let us know your experiences with avoidant people, and we'll talk to you soon.